The story begins in 1947. Banker Andy Dufresne is convicted of murdering his wife and her lover, despite claiming innocence. Since Maine has no death penalty, he's sentenced to 2 life terms and sent to the harsh Shawshank prison. Andy's cold demeanor convinces others of his guilt. Ellis Boyd Red Redding, in prison for 20 years, has his parole denied. Known as a smuggler, Red bets on which new inmate will crack on their first night. He wagers on Andy, but loses when another inmate, nicknamed Fat Ass, breaks down and is brutally beaten by guard Byron Hadley. The man later dies in the infirmary, leaving Andy to quietly ask his name, but is dismissed by fellow inmates. A month later, Andy asks Red to smuggle him a rock hammer for his hobby of rock carving. Red agrees but warns him about the Sisters, a group of predatory inmates led by Bogs. Though others see Andy as cold, Red admires his quiet resolve. Initially suspecting Andy might use the hammer to escape, Red laughs when he sees its small size, realizing it would be impossible for such a tool to dig through prison walls. During his first 2 years in prison, Andy endures constant attacks from Bogs and the Sisters, resisting but often beaten and raped. He stays silent about the abuse. When a roof-touring job is announced, Red pulls strings to get Andy and their friends assigned, giving them a break from routine. During the job, Andy overhears guard Byron Hadley planning about taxes on an inheritance. Using his banking skills, Andy offers to help Hadley legally shelter the money in exchange for cold beers for the work crew. Though initially threatened, Hadley agrees and the inmates enjoy beers on the roof. Red believes Andy's gesture was as much about gaining favor with the guards as feeling normal again. Later, Andy asks Red for a large poster of actress Rita Hayworth, surprising him. Soon after, Andy is brutally beaten by the Sisters and hospitalized for a month. In retaliation, Hadley and his guards severely beat Bogs, leaving him permanently disabled and transferred to another facility. The Sisters leave Andy alone after that. When Andy returns from the infirmary, he finds a collection of sculpting rocks and the Rita Hayworth poster in his cell, gifts from Red and the other inmates. Warden Norton hears about Andy's help with Hadley's finances and uses a surprise cell inspection to size him up. During the search, Andy is found reading his Bible, and he and the warden discuss their favorite verses. Before leaving, Norton tells Andy salvation lies within and returns the Bible. Andy is transferred to work in the prison library with aging inmate Brooks Hatlen. The real reason becomes clear when a guard asks Andy for financial advice. Andy sets up a makeshift office, helping guards with taxes and finances. His reputation grows, attracting guards from other prisons and eventually Warden Norton himself. Andy also starts writing weekly letters to the state senate, requesting funds to expand the library. Meanwhile, Brooks snaps and threatens Heywood to avoid being paroled, but Andy calms him down. Red explains that after 50 years in Shawshank, Brooks has become institutionalized and can't adjust to life outside. Paroled, Brooks struggles in a halfway house and supermarket job. Unable to cope, he carves Brooks was here into a beam and takes his own life. Determined to improve the library, Andy continues writing letters. After 6 years, he receives $200, old books, and records. Though the state hopes this will stop his letters, Andy doubles his efforts, committed to his goal. When a shipment of books and records arrives, Andy finds a copy of Mozart's The Marriage of Figaro. He locks a guard in the bathroom and plays the record over the prison's PA system. The music captivates the entire prison, and Red remarks that the women's voices made everyone feel free for a moment. Furious, Warden Norton orders Andy to stop the music, but Andy smiles and turns up the volume. Norton has Hadley break into the office, and Andy is sent to solitary for 2 weeks. When he's released, Andy tells his friends it was the easiest time he ever did, thanks to the music in his head. He talks about hope as a source of strength, but Red disagrees, saying hope is dangerous in Shawshank. Andy hints that Brooks lost hope, angering Red. Later, Red has another parole hearing after 30 years in prison, but is denied again. Andy gives him a harmonica to mark the milestone, and Red gives Andy a Marilyn Monroe poster for his 10 years at Shawshank. 4 years after the Mozart incident, the state senate gives Andy a $500 annual budget to expand the library, finally caving to his relentless letters. Andy renovates the space, names it after Brooks, and creates the best prison library in the state. He also starts mentoring inmates, helping them earn high school diplomas to improve their chances on the outside. Warden Norton exploits Andy's skills by using prison labor for public projects, underbidding competitors for cheap labor. He also accepts bribes to let others win contracts occasionally. Andy launders the profits by creating fake accounts and investments under the alias Randall Stephens, a fictional identity complete with documents like a birth certificate and driver's license. Andy explains to Red that he had to go to prison to learn how to be a crook. In 1965, a new inmate, Tommy, arrives at Shawshank. Charismatic and popular, he quickly befriends Andy and Red. After hearing about Tommy's history of theft and repeated prison sentences, Andy encourages him to change paths and earn his high school diploma. Tommy agrees and starts studying with Andy's help. Though frustrated when he thinks he failed the exam, Andy submits it anyway. One day, Tommy hears Andy's story from Red and is shocked. He reveals that a former cellmate of his had bragged about killing a golfer and his lover, crimes for which a banker was wrongfully imprisoned. Andy, hopeful after learning Tommy's story, asks Warden Norton to help him get a new trial with Tommy as a witness. Instead, Norton dismisses it, claiming Tommy is lying to please Andy. When Andy promises never to expose Norton's money laundering, Norton grows furious and sentences him to a month in solitary, the longest anyone has ever heard of. The inmates begin to believe Andy might truly be innocent after spending nearly 20 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Tommy soon receives a letter confirming he passed his high school exam, which a guard shares with Andy in solitary, briefly lifting his spirits. Later, Norton has Tommy brought outside at night for a private meeting. When asked if he would testify for Andy, Tommy eagerly agrees. Norton nods to Hadley, who kills Tommy on the spot. Norton visits Andy in solitary, claiming Tommy was shot while trying to escape. Andy doesn't believe him and declares he will no longer work for Norton. In response, Norton threatens to destroy the library, burn the books, and transfer Andy to a harsher part of the prison. He then extends Andy's time in solitary for another month to reconsider. After 2 months in solitary, Andy speaks with Red, sounding depressed. He reflects on how much he loved his wife and feels responsible for her death, even though he didn't kill her. Andy then shares his dream of living in Zihuatanejo, a beach town in Mexico where he hopes to run a hotel. He invites Red to join him, but Red refuses, saying he's too institutionalized, like Brooks. Red warns Andy that holding on to hope will only break him. Before leaving, Andy asks Red if he knows the Buxton, Maine area. He describes a specific hayfield with a large oak tree at the end of Stone Wall. Andy makes Red promise to visit the spot if he's ever paroled, saying something is hidden there, but refusing to reveal what. Red agrees, but grows worried about Andy, especially after learning he asked Heywood for a 6-foot rope. Red fears Andy might be planning to end his life. That night, Norton asks Andy to shine his shoes and leave his suit out for dry cleaning. Andy returns to his cell, and the lights go out. Red calls it the longest night of his life. The next morning, Andy doesn't answer roll call. A guard finds his cell empty and sounds the alarm for a missing inmate. At the same time, Norton discovers his polished shoes in place of Andy's and realizes something is wrong. Furious, Norton rushes to Andy's cell, where he finds nothing amiss at first. In frustration, he throws one of Andy's rocks at his Raquel Welch poster. The rock tears through, revealing a tunnel behind it just large enough for a man to crawl through. Through flashbacks narrated by Red, it's revealed that years ago, Andy discovered the prison walls were soft enough to dig through when a chunk fell off as he carved his name. Realizing he could escape, Andy ordered the Rita Hayworth poster to hide the hole. Over the years, he dug at night with his rock hammer, discreetly scattering the dirt in the courtyard during his morning walks. Andy kept himself busy to avoid becoming institutionalized like Brooks, but after Tommy's murder, he decided to act. During the previous night's thunderstorm, Andy wore Norton's clothes under his own, hiding them in a plastic bag tied to himself with the rope. No one noticed he was wearing the warden's Chinese shoes. Escaping through the tunnel he dug, Andy reached a sewer pipe, broke it open using a rock, timed with lightning strikes, and crawled 500 yards through sewage to freedom. The next day, searchers found his old clothes, a bar of soap, and his worn-out rock hammer. As Norton and the guards realize Andy is gone, Andy visits the Maine National Bank in Portland using his fake identity, Randall Stephens, to withdraw $370,000 from Norton's accounts. He also mails a package to the Portland Daily Bugle containing Norton's financial records and Andy's written testimony, exposing the warden's corruption. Soon after, the Maine State Police raid Shawshank Prison, joined by reporters covering the scandal. Hadley is arrested for Tommy's murder, and rumors circulate that he cried in the police car. The district attorney arrives with a warrant for Norton's arrest. In his office, Norton opens his safe, expecting his financial ledgers, but finds Andy's Bible instead. Inside, Andy had written, "Salvation lay within," and Norton discovers the pages of Exodus were cut out to fit Andy's rock hammer. As the police pound on his door, Norton takes a revolver and shoots himself. Red wonders if Norton realized in his final moments how Andy outsmarted him. Soon after, Red receives a blank postcard from Fort Hancock, Texas, and takes it as a sign that Andy made it to Mexico. Though Red and his friends enjoy recounting Andy's escape, Red begins to miss him deeply and falls into a quiet depression. At his 1967 parole hearing, Red dismisses the idea of rehabilitation as meaningless, expressing genuine regret for his past actions, not to gain release, but because he understands the harm he caused. His honesty impresses the board, and he is granted parole. Red goes to live and work where Brooks once did, noticing Brooks' carved message. At times, he feels so lost that he considers doing something to end up back in prison, but remembers his promise to Andy. Instead of looking at the guns in a pawn shop window, he buys a compass, preparing for what comes next. Red follows Andy's instructions, hitchhikes to Buxton, and finds the stone wall with the black rock Andy described. Beneath it, he discovers a box with cash and a note inviting him to join Andy in Mexico for a new project. Though Andy doesn't name the city, Red feels a surge of hope and excitement. After carving Brooks was here, so was Red into the wooden beam, Red breaks parole and leaves the halfway house, confident no one will search for an old crook. He takes a bus to Fort Hancock and crosses into Mexico. On a beach by the Pacific, he reunites with Andy, who is working on an old boat, and they share a joyful embrace. If you enjoyed this video, don't be shy to hit the like button, and if you disliked it, hit the dislike button twice, just to be sure. It would be best if you watched the whole movie. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe for more videos like this.